In the expansive dark of the galaxy, amidst the whirling constellations and drifting nebulas, there lies the Zaltraxian Detention Facility, a name that sends shivers down the spines of many sentient beings across the universe. Known for its unyielding security protocols and a population comprising some of the most notorious criminals, Zaltraxion is a place where stories are born. Stories of despair, resilience, and unexpected camaraderie. On a routine cycle of the Galactic Standard Calendar, a new prisoner was processed at Zaltraxion. This prisoner, however, was unlike any other that had graced the cold, metal floors of the space jail. Humanoid, certainly, but with a strange aura of simplicity and complexity entangled in one. His name was Tom Hawkins, an Earthling, a rare sight in the cosmic scale of prisoners. Earth, largely considered a backwater planet by the galactic community, seldom made headlines in the cosmic news, and its inhabitants were rarer still in intergalactic incidents. Tom stood quietly as the processing droid scanned him. The droid buzzed and clicked, its sensors working overtime to catalog every detail of this oddity. Prisoner 77453, Tom Hawkins. Species human. Crime, accidental trespass into restricted galactic zone. Sentence 1 cycle at Zaltraxian Detention Facility. Processing complete. The droid intoned in a monotone, its lights blinking indifferently. As Tom was led through the echoing corridors of Zaltraxion, his mind raced. How did he end up here? Just a week ago he had been on Earth, tinkering with his homemade spacecraft, a project born out of curiosity and a bit too much spare time. A miscalculated warp jump during his inaugural flight had sent him crashing into a galactic patrol cruiser. Despite his protests and the accident's innocent nature, here he was. Tom's arrival did not go unnoticed. News traveled quickly in Zaltraxion, carried along by the whispers and jeers of its residents. A human, they sneered, fragile and puny. In the communal area, Tom was met with stares ranging from curious to outright hostile. A group of Graxlites, towering creatures with skin like molten silver, watched him with eyes that glinted like steel. Nearby, a pair of Xamphibians, known for their mind tricks and psychological games, whispered among themselves, a slight smirk playing on their lips. The first to approach him was a Ragnar named Klax. Klax was a massive being, his body covered in scales that shimmered with a hue of deep blue and purple. Standing over 2 meters tall, he looked down at Tom with a mixture of amusement and contempt. "What have we here? A little human lost far from home," Klax bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls, drawing laughter from the surrounding crowd. Tom, however, did not respond with fear. Instead, he held Klax's gaze, his posture calm, almost defiant. "Just here to serve my time like everyone else," he replied, his voice steady. This unexpected display of courage, or foolishness depending on one's perspective, rippled through the crowd. The laughter died down, replaced by murmurs of surprise and a newfound interest in this peculiar human. Klax's smile faltered, then transformed into a sneer. "Bold. But boldness alone won't save you here, little human." As the days began to pass, Tom quickly realized that surviving Zaltraxion would require more than just physical strength. It would demand cunning, resilience, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to understand and navigate the complex social hierarchy of the galaxy's most unwanted. Unbeknownst to Tom and the other inmates, his arrival would set in motion a series of events that would change Zaltraxion forever. For in the dark corners of the galaxy, underestimating a human from Earth could be a grave mistake, one that even the toughest of aliens might regret. As the lights dimmed for the night cycle, Tom lay in his cell, staring at the metallic ceiling, his mind racing with plans and possibilities. One thing was clear. He wasn't going to let Zaltraxion break him. Instead, he would use his time here to learn, adapt, and perhaps find a way to turn the tables in his favor. Tom's first week in the Zaltraxian Detention Facility was a relentless crash course in the politics and perils of galactic incarceration. The communal area, a hub of constant activity and the heart of inmate interaction, became his proving ground. It was here that the subtleties of interspecies communication and the unspoken rules that governed the facility's social structure became apparent. Tom quickly learned to discern the dangerous from the merely disagreeable, a skill that likely saved his skin more than once. During one of these communal periods, a dispute broke out near the nutrient dispensers. A pair of Torvixians were contesting the possession of extra rations. As a crowd gathered, eager for the distraction, Tom observed from a distance. His focus, however, wasn't on the fighters, but on the other inmates' reactions, gauging who allied with whom and who preferred the solitude of neutrality. Clax, who had taken an amused but condescending interest in Tom, sauntered over. "Human, you don't seem like much, but you're not as dumb as you look," he grunted, eyeing Tom with a mixture of respect and ridicule. "Staying out of trouble?" "I'm just watching and learning," Tom replied, keeping his tone neutral yet firm. "Seems like the smart thing to do." "Smart," Clax echoed, his laugh deep and rumbling. "Maybe too smart for your own good." The altercation at the dispensers escalated, drawing the attention of the guards, a pair of robotic enforcers equipped with stun batons. As they intervened, efficiently and without prejudice, the crowd dispersed, some grumbling, others relieved. Clax clapped a heavy, scaled hand on Tom's shoulder, nearly knocking him forward. "Come on, human. Let me show you something that might just keep you alive longer." Curious and cautious, Tom followed Clath through a series of dimly lit corridors to a less frequented section of the facility. Here, the air was cooler, the omnipresent hum of the station's life support systems louder. Clax stopped before a sealed door, entering a code hidden from Tom's view. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a small room filled with various artifacts and contraband, items that were, no doubt, forbidden within the facility walls. "This," Clax gestured broadly, "is how you get what you need to survive. Friends in low places human. Remember that." Tom surveyed the room, his eyes taking in the makeshift weapons, smuggled goods, and rare commodities. It was a treasure trove of illicit gains and a testament to the corruption and complexity of galactic law enforcement. "And you're showing me this because—" Clax's grin revealed rows of jagged teeth. "Because, human, you interest me. And I'm not the only one. There are others here who see potential in you, potential that could be useful." As Tom considered Clax's words, he understood that this was both an invitation and a warning. Alignment with Clax could provide protection and access to resources, but at the cost of becoming entangled in whatever schemes the Ragnar had brewing. "Think about it," Clax said as they left the room, the door sealing behind them with a definitive click. "But not too long. Time, like everything else in Zaltraxion, is a commodity." Back in his cell, Tom lay back on his modest cot, thoughts swirling. The offer was tempting, but the risks were significant. He needed allies, that much was clear, but at what price? As he drifted into an uneasy sleep, Tom knew that whatever decision he made, it would set the course for his remaining days at Zaltraxion, for better or worse. As the days slipped by, Tom's reputation grew. No longer just a curiosity, he became a figure of intrigue among the inmates, a human who defied expectations and perhaps a player in the subtle power dynamics of the galaxy's most infamous detention center. Tom's daily existence at Zaltraxion began to follow a peculiar rhythm as he learned to navigate the treacherous undercurrents of prison life. His careful observations and calculated interactions with the diverse denizens of the galaxy were starting to bear fruit. The inmate network buzzed with talk of the clever human, a title that amused and irritated Tom in equal measure. During the facility's designated recreation time, a rare event occurred, a game of Vrax, a complex sport popular among several star systems, known for its brutality and strategic depth. Tom, invited by a group of inmates to participate, decided to join, seeing it as a prime opportunity to further solidify his standing and perhaps gain some semblance of respect. The game was a chaotic blend of physical prowess and keen tactics, played on a holographic field that altered its topology at random intervals. Tom's team, a motley crew of various species, initially doubted his ability to contribute given his human physique. However, Tom's quick thinking and adaptability shone through as he navigated the shifting terrain, dodging aggressive plays with a nimbleness that surprised his teammates. Clax, observing from the sidelines, noted Tom's performance with a grudging nod. "Not just a thinker, but a mover too," he muttered to a fellow inmate, a comment that rippled through the onlookers and added a layer of respect to Tom's growing reputation. Post-game, while nursing a few minor bruises in the medical bay, Tom encountered Dr. Elira, a fellow inmate and the facility's de facto medic, a Mavari, whose species was known for their medical prowess and eidetic memory. Dr. Elira, a quiet but observant presence, had watched Tom's rise with interest. "You're not just surviving, Tom Hawkins. You're adapting well," Elira noted, applying a regenerative salve to Tom's arm. "But remember, adaptation can provoke envy and fear, and those can be as dangerous as any physical threat." Tom considered her words carefully. "I appreciate the advice, Dr. Elira. How do you manage it? Staying out of the trouble stirring around us?" Elira smiled slightly, a rare expression that hinted at wisdom and sorrow intermingled. "By being useful, Tom. The same way you are becoming. But usefulness can be a double-edged sword." Her words struck a chord with Tom. Usefulness had indeed paved his way so far, but it also painted a target on his back. As he left the medical bay, his mind buzzed with the implications of his actions and the precarious balance he needed to maintain. The following cycles saw Tom leveraging his newfound status to forge subtle alliances. His evenings were often spent in quiet conversation with various groups, trading information, favors, and occasionally stories of Earth, a planet so many regarded with dismissive curiosity. One such evening, as Tom shared tales of Earth's oceans and mountains with a group of captivated Sarnians, an emergency klaxon blared through the facility. All inmates were abruptly ordered back to their cells. Confusion and tension swept through the corridors like a storm. Once locked in his cell, Tom pressed his face against the small, reinforced window. Outside, the cause of the disruption became apparent. A riot had erupted in one of the high-security blocks, a dangerous event even in a place as controlled as Zaltraxion. As the facility guards mobilized, deploying drones and riot suppression gear, Tom realized that the riot could be a distraction, a cover for something else, something potentially more sinister. He recalled Klax's words about friends in low places and wondered if this chaos was connected to the Rognar's mysterious schemes. Lying in the dim light of his cell, Tom understood that the next few days could redefine his fate in Zaltraxion. Whatever was happening, it was big, and its outcomes would ripple through every corner of the facility. With his alliances and his reputation, he was now deeply entwined in the complex tapestry of Zaltraxion's power games. As the facility settled back into a tense normalcy post-riot, Tom knew one thing for certain. He needed to be ready for what was coming, ready to act, and perhaps ready to exploit the unfolding chaos to his advantage. As the echoes of the riot faded, Zaltraxion returned to a state of strained normalcy. Tom, ever watchful, noticed the subtle shifts in the guards' routines and the wary glances exchanged among the inmates. The facility was on high alert, the atmosphere thick with suspicion and the memory of recent violence. It was during this time of heightened tension that Tom received an unexpected invitation through a secreted comm device that had mysteriously found its way into his possession. The message was cryptic, a simple set of coordinates and a time, signed only with the initial K. Klax's doing was unmistakable. With a mixture of trepidation and resolve, Tom made his way to the specified location, a secluded section of the facility rarely frequented by the general inmate population. He arrived in a dimly lit room, the air cool and stale. Klax was already there, his massive frame barely illuminated by the flickering light panels overhead. Beside him stood two other figures shrouded in shadows. "Human," Klax greeted, his voice low and rumbling. "Glad you could make it. We've got a situation, and you're part of the solution." Tom kept his expression neutral, aware of the gravity of this clandestine meeting. "What situation?" Klax motioned to one of the shadowed figures who stepped forward into the light, a Chorga, known for their hacking skills and data theft. "This is Mivok. He's uncovered something big, something that could shake up this whole facility." Mivok, his eyes quick and calculating, nodded at Tom. "The riot wasn't random," he began, his voice a sibilant whisper. "It was orchestrated to cover up a data heist. high-level secrets, plans about the facility, movements, supply chains, information that could be very valuable to the right buyer. "And you want my help to sell it?" Tom asked, piecing together their plan. "Not just sell it," Clax interjected. "We want to use it to gain leverage, improve our standing here, maybe even negotiate terms for certain freedoms." The stakes were higher than Tom had anticipated. Engaging in this plan didn't just mean breaking facility rules, it meant diving deep into the politics of intergalactic crime. Yet the potential benefits were undeniable. This could be his chance to earn some measure of control over his fate here, or it could be a fast track to deeper troubles. "What's my role?" Tom inquired, his decision teetering on the edge of strategy and skepticism. "You're the face of the operation," Clax explained. "You're new, less watched, and you've got a certain appeal. You'll broker the deal. Mivok here will handle the data transfer, and I'll make sure you're protected." Tom weighed his options. This alliance could either be a powerful protector or a dangerous liability, but standing still wasn't a choice, not in Zaltraxian. "All right," he finally agreed, a plan forming in his mind, "but on one condition. I want a guaranteed way out of this facility for me, if things go south." Clax and Mivok exchanged glances, then nodded in agreement. "Deal," Clax said, extending his hand. Tom shook it, the pact sealed with a firm grip that belied the perilous nature of their agreement. As Tom left the meeting, the comm device vibrated with a new message. A buyer was already interested. The gears were in motion, and there was no turning back now. He spent the next few days preparing, Mivok feeding him information through the comm device, each message deepening his involvement in the conspiracy. Finally, the day of the deal arrived. The buyer, a representative of a powerful syndicate from the outer systems, was due to communicate via a secure channel set up in the maintenance wing, a location fraught with risk but necessary for the privacy it provided. Tom made his way there, his senses heightened, aware of every shadow and every footstep echoing in the empty corridors. As he set up the communication terminal, his thoughts raced. This was the moment of truth where all his efforts and risks would either come to fruition or fall apart disastrously. The screen flickered to life, and a masked figure appeared, their voice distorted. "Let's see if what you've promised is worth my time," the figure said, their tone cold and businesslike. Tom steadied himself, ready to play the part he had committed to, ready to shape his destiny one way or another. As he began to speak, he knew that the outcome of this conversation would determine much more than his own future. It would dictate the balance of power within the walls of Zaltraxian itself. Tom's heart pounded as he faced the masked figure on the screen. The atmosphere in the maintenance wing was tense, every sound amplified by the silence surrounding him. He took a deep breath, pushing aside his fear and focusing on the task at hand. "We have the data," Tom began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "Plans of the facility, supply chains, guard rotations, everything you need to gain the upper hand here." The figure leaned closer, their eyes narrowing behind the mask. "Show me proof." Tom tapped a sequence into the terminal, and Mivok's carefully curated data flashed onto the screen. Blueprints of the detention facility, lists of guard schedules, and encrypted communication logs filled the display. The figure examined the information, their expression unreadable. "This is impressive," the buyer admitted. "But how do I know it's genuine and not a clever forgery?" "Check the encryption signatures," Tom suggested, trying to exude confidence. "They match the internal protocols of Zaltraxian. It's impossible to fake that without inside access." A moment of silence followed as the buyer scrutinized the data. Tom felt every second stretch into an eternity, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Finally, the figure nodded. "It appears legitimate. We have a deal. But understand this. If this data turns out to be false, or if you double-cross us, we will find you, no matter where you hide." "Understood," Tom replied, his voice firm. "We have no intention of betrayal. This is a mutual benefit." The screen went dark, and Tom exhaled a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The first step was complete, but now came the most dangerous part. Ensuring the data exchange went smoothly without attracting unwanted attention from the guards or other inmates. Returning to his cell, Tom found Clax waiting for him. The Ragnar's massive form loomed in the dim light, a look of anticipation in his eyes. "How did it go?" Clax asked. "They bought it," Tom said, allowing a small smile to break through his tension. "Now we need to make sure the transfer happens without a hitch." Clax grinned, revealing his sharp teeth. "Excellent. Mivok will handle the technical side. We need to ensure the guards remain oblivious. I'll arrange a distraction." True to his word, Clax orchestrated a minor skirmish in the mess hall the next day, drawing the guards' attention and providing the perfect cover for Mivok to initiate the data transfer. Tom stayed close to the maintenance wing, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. The transfer took longer than expected, every minute feeling like an hour. Finally, Mivok signaled success, and Tom allowed himself a moment of relief. The data was in the hands of the Syndicate, and their leverage within Zaltraxian had just increased exponentially. That night, as the facility settled into its usual restless quiet, Tom received another message on his comm device. This time, it was from the buyer. "The data is confirmed," the message read. "As agreed, arrangements have been made. You will find a means of escape in your cell tomorrow. Use it wisely." Tom's pulse quickened. The Syndicate had come through on their end. The promise of freedom was within his grasp. The next day he found a small device hidden under his cot, a portable cloaking generator, capable of rendering him invisible for a short duration. With it were detailed instructions on how to reach an unmonitored docking bay where a small escape vessel awaited. Tom wasted no time. As the facility entered its night cycle, he activated the cloaking device and slipped through the corridors, his heart pounding with each step. The route was perilous, every shadow a potential threat, but he moved with purpose, the thought of freedom driving him forward. He reached the docking bay without incident, the escape vessel just as described. As he boarded, the reality of his impending freedom began to sink in. He set the coordinates for a nearby neutral zone and engaged the engines. As the vessel lifted off, Tom glanced back at Zaltraxian, its hulking form receding into the void. He had survived one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy, outwitted some of the most cunning beings he had ever encountered. And now, he was free. The stars stretched out before him, a vast expanse of possibilities. Tom knew that his experiences in Zaltraxian had changed him, made him stronger, more resilient. As he navigated the vessel into the blackness of space, he couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. The galaxy was vast, and his adventure was just beginning.